This is Denise Kagan. I am the president of DCA Virtual Business Support, and I'm here with Dr. Louise Korver with Global Executive Development Partners. And today we're going to talk a little bit about company culture. How are you today, Louise?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking. So I'm not big on small chit chat, so let's just jump right into the questions.
Okay.
Louise, first, if you would just tell a little bit about your business.
Yeah, sure. I do primarily executive development, which breaks down into a couple of categories. I help companies select their CEO and the C-suite organization. So CEO, COO, CFO, all the C jobs. And if not that level, then I'm also working on helping them identify people coming up through the ranks that have potential for those roles. And probably a category of people that I work most closely with are executive women who are moving up in the organization into C-suite positions.
Oh, that's great. I love to hear that. How would small business owners with a few number of employees benefit from having a well-defined company culture?
Well, company culture is really something that is analogous to fish floating in water. They're unaware that the water is there. And with us, the culture is probably the same way. But every business has a culture that's derivative of what kind of leader we are, what kind of employees you have, what your philosophy of leadership is, what your philosophy of customer service is. So you can see it, but you can't necessarily measure it as easily as a customer coming in or doing business with you can tell you what your culture is like. Sometimes it's a little bit harder for us to see it ourselves.
That makes sense. And since it isn't one size fits all, how is it best for companies to proceed in building the right atmosphere?
Well, a lot of it comes directly from your leadership. So as a company business owner and leader, how you behave towards your customers and towards your employees, to a great extent builds your culture. So if you're someone who is really nice to a customer's face, and as soon as the customer walks away, you say something snide back to your employees, then you can't notice that perhaps immediately affecting your employees, but that's about the culture you're setting, about how we think about and how we treat customers. And so the same thing is true with employees. And so if they roll their eyes when they talk to a customer, they probably do it because they saw you doing it. So it's an important thing for us to watch our behaviors around our employees because they're going to do what we do. And that's kind of how the culture starts being developed.
One of my employees has a child who will get on her play phone and pretend she's talking to her boss whenever I'm on the phone with her. So what you just said about employees reminds me of that.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah. So that doesn't sound good when the kid's doing it. You know that she's mimicking mom, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
With employees. And it always surprises me when leaders go out into their organizations and are horrified by an employee taking a memo and acting against what's on the memo, because they ask them to do something and they're actually doing what you asked them to do. And they're shocked that people wouldn't ask questions or think that something should be implemented just the way they said it. But that's how they treat their boss. That's what they do. So you have to be careful that people are interpreting what you're asking them to do. But I love that example that you made about a child mimicking mom. That's exactly culture right there.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So when a company comes about trying to evaluate themselves, what are some important self-evaluation questions that they can ask themselves to evaluate their own culture?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they should start by thinking about what their philosophy is. What's their philosophy of business? What's their philosophy about people? And so you can translate that into customer service, translate that into employee motivation. Why do people come to work for you? What is it that they're looking to satisfy? Why do customers come and do business with you? So if you're trying to understand what your culture is or how to develop a culture that supports your business better, or support your customers well, you really have to start asking, who am I? What's my philosophy? And how am I embedding that in the business practices that I use?
So you mentioned briefly about how that impacts the people that want to come to work for you. Mm-hmm. So how exactly does culture play into building successful teams?
Well, I think just the example that you made about the mother and daughter, selecting employees based on their ability to understand you and to be able to interpret your beliefs and your philosophy into doing business, that's extremely important. So what we think is success in our business, or a successful employee in our business, is somebody who's doing what we think they should be doing. And so sometimes it's important to think about the long term, not just the short term. When we first start a small business, we try to do everything ourselves until we find out we're not good at everything. And then we start to hire people who are very good at one thing, but then we need them to do additional things. Can they do that? Are we hiring somebody who's a good bookkeeper and then we want them to start answering the phone, but bookkeeping and answering the phone may not be the same skill set, you may not find a person who likes to talk on the phone who also likes to do your books. That sort of thing is question the success path of a person to use their natural strengths, their natural talents, but also think a little bit about the long term of your business and whether or not a person can be with you for the long term. Clearly, if you take the time to train someone, you want them to be there for a while. And so if your business is going to grow and continue to change, you want to be able to have people who can grow with you. So success isn't just somebody who understands you, it's somebody who can do what you need them to do, and also someone who can grow with you as you grow.
That makes perfect sense as well. So tell me about what type of training do you recommend? If a company and a team want to learn about company culture, how do they train for that?
Well, it's an interesting question because you can't really train culture. Culture is an outcome. It's an outcome of your leadership. It's an outcome of the employees doing work every day for you. It's also based on your customer reputation, your brand in the market. And so how you go about doing culture might be start with some research. Go to your grocery store and write down things that happen to you in your interactions with those employees. That's a pretty good indication of what management is like and the kind of culture they're trying to build for their employees. So if you're trying to build a better culture in your organization, think about the ingredients, the steps that you're taking, what the pieces and parts are of how you run your business, and how effectively you plan your time, how well you provide a working environment for your employees, whether you give them good tools to work with, good computers, good lighting, a variety of things like that. I think about a lot of businesses that start in someone's home and then migrate out from there to offices. And a lot of small business owners that I've worked with, and I can think of one in particular, when I was living in the New York area, was a book publisher. She put together the artists who were illustrating books and the writers who were writing the children's books. And then she had the relationships with the New York publishing houses, and she would put those books together and pitch them. And she worked out of her house in Connecticut. And it was a big house. It had a lot of space to work in, but she, as a homeowner, owned cats. And so those cats were running all over the office, and their litter box was someplace close to the office, which was offensive. And the business owner didn't care about that because it was her house. And if they wanted to work there, they would have to put up with the cats in the litter box. Well, not so much. So it was hard for her to find a successful staff because people didn't want to work for her in that environment. So you can have a great business and make a lot of money, but you can't get people to work for you because of the environment that you've created. So that's just a small example of how we have to think about what we're doing to create the right place to do business.
So
I hope that answered the question. I'm not really
sure. Yeah, you did. So if your environment is chaotic, you're basically going to be hiring to the chaos.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay, yeah, you absolutely did answer that. Thank you. So you talked a lot about leadership development, and I know that that's a big part of what you do at Global Executive Development Partners. Can you tell me a little bit more about your leadership work?
Well, sure. I think all of the work that I do starts from one basic premise, and that is that leaders are people who are doing a particular job, and being a leader is only one part of your life. But if you think about your life and how you have a philosophy that's carrying through the way you live, the way you work, who you are as a human being, that's what leadership is all about. Who are you? What are you made out of? And how do you find expression in the nature of the work that you do? And so a lot of the work that I do starts back at the basics, which is, who are you as a human being? What are you trying to accomplish in doing this work that you're doing, which today happens to be owner of a business? And what are some of the issues that you have in being a business owner? And how can I help you be more effective in doing what it is you're trying to do? And so whether that leader is new to a big job in a big corporation, or that person is in their own business and trying to grow it, and has to, for the first time, make decisions about hiring people. It doesn't really matter. The same thing is true, is we grew up a certain way, we have a certain impression about what success looks like, we have a certain definition for what we think a leader should do, what a business owner should do, and so we're trying to improve ourselves, and leadership development is that process of becoming everything that you can be. And sometimes we have to make a choice that we're in the wrong business, or as much as we enjoy the business, if it gets too big, it's not where you want to be anymore. I've had to do that myself with a business that grew so fast in the New York area that it wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. And so when I got to that point where I didn't enjoy going out there and making money so that I could pay the staff, rather than the other way around. So, if I was working to make money and suddenly I'm now making money for other people to work, that system didn't quite satisfy me the same way it used to. And so we all have to go through times in our life where we pull up and we take a look at some of those things and make decisions about what really gives us satisfaction. And so leadership development is trying to figure that delicate balance out of whether or not you're feeling confident in what you're doing, you're feeling satisfied with what you're doing, and most of all, that you're getting your needs met, that you are feeling successful in what you do and are enjoying it. And so whether it's, some big job at Lowe's or TIA Prep or Bank of America or Duke Energy, wherever that organization might be, big or small, it's helping leaders connect themselves with themselves and being authentically who they are.
I like that. Very inspirational, and you've given us quite a bit to think about, whether small business owner or somewhere working for the larger corporations. I appreciate it. So thank you for joining me today.
It's my pleasure.
No problem. Just want to share a little bit more information about you. You can be found at gxdllc.com. And this is Dr. Louise Korver with Global Executive Development Partners. I'm Denise Kagan with DCA Virtual Business Support. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Well, and don't forget, probably the most important part of my background that we didn't talk about is I'm a customer.
Yes. I did not share that. Yes. Dr. Louise Korver is also one of our customers at DCA Virtual Business.
Yeah, you're helping me grow my business the way I need to grow it. Thank you for that.
And thank you for that last minute plug. I appreciate that. You have a great afternoon, Louise.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.